Hi, welcome to Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts programming on the courts and the legal system. I am Deborah Gross, PMC's CEO. I would like to thank you for being with us today. Our programs are designed to help you understand the importance of the courts, their impact on you, and their fundamental contribution to our democracy. Our goal is to provide you with resources to navigate the courts with confidence and understand your rights. After a long career in private legal practice as a litigator and as a passionate advocate for the nonprofit legal community, I pivoted to advocate for increased awareness about and access to the courts. Judicial independence is the cornerstone of our democracy, and the public's attitude towards and confidence in the judiciary has shifted in recent years. We hope these programs help you understand that judicial decisions are made based on Constitution, statutes, and the law, and not public opinion. Please visit our website, www.pmconline, that's Paul, Mary, Catherine, to learn more about PMC and find an abundance of resources on the courts. Thank you for listening, and let's begin tonight's program.
See, this first slide is talking about the Pennsylvania state court system, and touch briefly on that for any of the viewers who don't know. The magisterial district courts are the lowest level judiciary in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There are 546 judicial districts in our Commonwealth. And the magisterial district judges are elected to 6-year terms. They are not retained like or vote for retention vote like common pleas judges. They have to run anew every 6 years. They handle summary criminal offenses like a harassment, for example, and they do preliminary hearings on misdemeanors and felony charges, which, if held for court after the Commonwealth proves a prima facie case, which is defined as more that a crime has been committed and more likely than not, the person charged with the crime did it. Again, it's a very, very low burden. It's more likely than not. And that can be challenged in full court with what's called a writ of habeas corpus, and sometimes the district judge's ruling is overturned. They handle traffic offenses that are summary offenses, and like speeding, reckless driving, and civil cases up to the amount in controversy of $12,000. So 546 districts. Now, what happens with these district judges are not, I repeat, not required to be lawyers. Some of them are former retired police officers. Some are former paramedics, first responders of other kinds. Some of them are businessmen or businesswomen that have just become a district justice. The next level up is the Court of Common
Michael, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Sorry. So the only thing that people need to know, because it could be concerning if you think that you have an MDJ who's not a lawyer, is that they do have a requirement of taking a month program and passing an exam, which not everybody passes. And then the MDJs have a continuing legal education requirement that is greater than the continuing judicial education requirement for the rest of the judges that you will be explaining about.
Well, they do have a month-long school after they get elected district judge, as opposed to 3 years of law school for a lawyer.
Yeah.
But that is why we have the writ of habeas corpus, so that a full judge, if you will, a judge who has gone to law school, who is a lawyer, reviews their determination under the writ of a habeas corpus and decides whether the district judge has made the correct decision or not. That is the fail-safe. Now, the Court of Common Pleas judges, generally every county has their own common pleas judges, but there are 60 judicial districts in Pennsylvania, and there are 67 counties. So what that tells you is that some counties or some judges hear cases in two counties as opposed to one. I think Elk and Cameron is an example of that. Not, don't hold me to that though. So those are the common pleas courts. Those judges are elected by you and me and the other citizens, the registered voters, for 10-year terms. And we just had the election in Pennsylvania that judges in your county were voted, for example, Judge Rangos and Judge Sattler were up for retention in the Court of Common Pleas in Allegheny County, among others. But the vote is simply, do we keep them? Yes. Do we let them go? And then you vote no. So I don't know, at least in my going on 40 years of history as a lawyer, I don't know of any judge who was never retained on a retention. So that once you're elected, it's not guaranteed, but it has been the practice. You're in there until you retire, which is now 75 is the retirement age for common pleas judges. So they are, the fail safe with them is there's a superior court in Pennsylvania. There are 15 judges on that court elected to 10-year terms. What they do is oversee appeals from the Court of Common Pleas. Now, the Commonwealth does not have, so the district attorney's office, of which I'm an assistant in Allegheny County District Attorney's Office, we do not have the right to appeal a not guilty verdict. Once a judge rules not guilty, our case is over. However, if the judge finds the defendant guilty, the defendant has the right to file an appeal and state their reasons for filing that appeal, such as the evidence was insufficient to convict as a matter of law. It doesn't, you don't prevail as a defense attorney on credibility. Well, the witness was unbelievable. That's the province of the court, to judge, or the jury to judge credibility. So generally speaking, to simplify it, although there are some procedural reasons for appeal, that, I mean, for example, let's just say the defendant was never given the option of a preliminary hearing. That could cause a conviction to be overturned if it is timely filed. But generally speaking, it's a mistake of law that a judge commits or lets a jury commit on a verdict that results in a defendant appeal. So those judges were elected, said there's 15 of them in Pennsylvania. They are on 10-year terms. In the Commonwealth Court, which is more of an administrative court, and there are 9 judges elected to 10-year terms. They are not going to have anything to do with today's presentation. There is a Supreme Court in Pennsylvania with 7 justices. Now, difference, they're called justices, not judges. God help you if you call them judge. They don't like that because they have earned the title justice. They're elected to 10-year terms. They have the option of hearing appeals. It's called aliquotter in Pennsylvania, where a defendant or in some cases, the Commonwealth can appeal a court to a case to the Supreme Court to see if the Superior Court wrongly decided. Once the Supreme Court rules, well, you're done. That's about it in Pennsylvania, unless there's some grounds for a federal appeal that is really beyond the scope of today's presentation. So that's a quick overview of the Pennsylvania judicial system in our courts. Now, we're going to be talking primarily today, almost exclusively, about the Veterans Court here in Allegheny County. That's the extent of my knowledge is what we do in Allegheny County. Across other counties in Pennsylvania, not everybody has a Veterans Court. Some do, some don't, but they're similar on a ground basis, so they can vary as to what procedures and what type of crimes they allow. So why do we have a veterans court? And what's the difference of a veteran or anybody else? Well, a veteran, as has been said at times, writes a blank check to America up to the value of his or her life. You don't know too many other people that do that. And because of some of the stresses and trials that veterans go through, they, military service, especially combat service, those of us who have done it, suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries from wounds, physical impairments of just I had one friend from Vietnam who had jungle rot on his feet. I mean, he had to deal with that for the rest of his life. It's a fungus infection. Uh, Mental health issues. They sometimes the military leaves you with a distorted mindset on things, depending on what you have gone through and what you've been subjected to. Some veterans self-medicate and end up becoming addicted to alcohol or other substances. So we have alcoholism and substance abuse. And many, many veterans are, I'm sure you've seen in the news, homeless. They come back and they just don't adjust. So they are a alternative to regular courts. And it's perhaps appropriate to speak of why do we have a veterans court? Well, for those reasons that I talked about, that I know a young man who was deployed for 2 years to Iraq, was a combat engineer, a member of the 82nd Airborne paratroopers, a demolition expert, wounded multiple times in Iraq by improvised explosive devices that are referred to commonly as IEDs. And I had talked to him during his first deployment to Iraq. They were 1 year each time. And as a combat engineers in the Army, they don't really have anything to do with they have portable bridges that go across, but they're not water. But their job is to keep the roads open and to clear things out so that other units in the military can get through. Well, as part of his job is he had to keep the road open. And he was a new guy over there. This was his first tour, and it happened to be on Christmas Eve of all times. And he was shoveling out the debris from things that had been blown up in the roadway when he looked on and saw a steaming arm, severed arm in his shovel. I can tell you, I know him well. He suffers from that and other things to this day. Uh, he has PTSD to it. Sometimes it gets to him and he has to go to the VA for treatment. So, I mean, that's some of the issues that our young men and women who serve in the military and are deployed. And I pray that they don't have to go to the Middle East with what's going on over there at this time. But it has caused concern along with other members of society who are, let's just say that you and I are all normal, okay? So they're not quite like us. They have a problem of adjusting for one reason or another. So the rules of professional responsibility to which all of us lawyers are bound require that a prosecutor's role is to seek justice, not merely convictions. We are alone in that, in the rules of professional responsibility with that mandate. Our job is to seek justice. So in furtherance of this requirement, the district attorney's appellate here in Allegheny County has established multiple specialty treatment courts, of which Veterans Court is one. And the objective of which is to establish effective collaboration, communication, and functioning between the criminal court division of the court system and the behavioral health system. This is forward thinking. It's not just criminal court. In the old days, and I'm going on my 40th year of practice, I first started with the district attorney's office in 1986. And that wouldn't make 40 years to today, but I had other things before that. So in the old days, convict them, mandatory sentence, lock them up. That was our job. I know we had to do it with justice. I mean, we still had, I can remember two cases distinctly as a new assistant DA that I withdrew the charges because I could have got a conviction, but I knew that the conviction wasn't warranted based on the evidence. And that's what any good prosecutor does and should do. So we want that collaboration and communication between criminal court and behavioral health system. Secondly, to create a balance, and I think this is part, it's very, very important, is to create a balance between ensuring public safety and providing community-based treatment options for the veteran or for any member of the specialty courts, which may be at this point the objectives and goals for all of these courts. And in Allegheny County, we have 7 of them. We have the Veterans Court, we have DUI Court, it's driving under the influence. We have Mental Health Court, we have Sex Offenders Court, we have Pride Court, and that is for sex workers to establish them a sense of pride and self-worth to get them out of being prostitutes. We have Domestic Violence Court for repeat domestic violence offenders. And then we have one that started it all, Drug Court. Okay, and that's probably the best known. So in each of those courts, the goals and the objectives are the same under Mr. Zappalla's vision for this balance between ensuring public safety and providing community-based treatment options. These courts recognize that the answer is not just to lock people up because they broke the black letter law. That's old thinking. I mean, that's Wild West stuff. I mean, that is not what modern prosecutors, not what modern defense attorneys or legal scholars recommend or want to see anymore. The third objective on these specialty courts is to ensure good legal representation, timely processing, and appropriate sentencing for the veteran. Now, in Veterans Court, initially, and almost always, nobody goes to jail. Purpose is to keep the veteran in the same in other specialty courts, to help that person, that veteran, get treatment, whether it's for drug and alcohol or anger management. I mean, some of us came back from, and I speak from this, so you can either take it that I have experience or take with what I say with a grain of salt, but I'm a Vietnam combat veteran. So some of us have anger issues. And I mean, you think about it, you're taught to kill when you go through basic training or boot camp. And you're taught to react a certain way to aggression. Sometimes most of us can shut that off. Sometimes people can't. I mean, think of it as like every once in a while we see a football player charged with assault. I mean, those guys are taught to hit and run people over and not let anybody get in their way. And it doesn't really surprise me that some of them end up with assault charges. The next objective is to aid the court in diagnostic and evaluation services as a means to render appropriate sentencing and disposition options. Again, I said the goal of Veterans Court is not incarceration. It is treatment, rehabilitation. We have a very, very low recidivism rate. I'm sorry, I don't have a percentage to give you, but it is far less than in other aspects of criminal court. Those people who go on standard probation or those who are incarcerated. Uh, Sometimes incarceration is just criminal school, where you can go in there having committed a burglary, and you can become a more efficient burglar because your cellmate teaches you lock picking, uh, just for a simplistic example. The So the way that Allegheny County, the way that we do Veterans Court is we have a committee, and that committee is made up of a prosecutor, that's me. And I'm sorry, I'm not exactly following this, but I'll get back to this is
No, it's what you say is great. What you're saying is phenomenal. So don't
okay.
worry.
All
Thank you.
right, thank you. I'm not too good with PowerPoint, so I kind of just start rattling on my own. But we have a committee, and we meet once a month in Pittsburgh. And I wrote down the numbers so that I wouldn't forget anybody. And of course, I can't find that page now. But the committee is prosecutor. That's me. My paralegal comes with me because I'd be lost without him. He keeps everything organized. Uh, and we have a member from the Veterans Administration. We have a member from the Veterans Leadership Program. We have a member of the Justice Restorative System, it's JRS. So you have VA, VLP, JRS, since we all love our acronyms in the law. And we have a very experienced public defender who is also a retired Army and Air Force colonel. And he is the public defender. He's the defense attorney's side of this meeting. Uh, we oftentimes have other members of these, sometimes people there from court administration at this meeting. We meet once a month and go over a referral list. And it takes more than a couple hours to go over the number of people. The people that come on that referral list are referred to us by defense attorneys, by prosecutors to whom the case is assigned, lower level any prosecutor gets a case and says, hey, this guy's a veteran. Would you consider him for Veterans Court? So we get referral from other prosecutors. We get referrals from defense attorneys, from the public defender's office. We are trying to ensure that all the district judges' offices, they used to be called district justices. Now they're district judges. We like to change the names up every once in a while. And we want the assistant district attorney and the assistant public defender or the district judge himself or herself to refer what they think are appropriate cases. And all that we need from them at the time is this person is a veteran. Then we have this meeting, we sit down and say, do they qualify for the veterans program, which is a period of probation that is from 1 to 4 years, 1 to 5 years, that they go on very intensive supervised probation. It's not like probation in regular court where you kind of just get lost in the system and you might have a good PO or a lackadaisical PO, not to insult any of brothers and sisters in a probation office, but they have so many that sometimes people just don't get the supervision that they need. In Veterans Court, we have two dedicated, well, we have more than two, but that actually come to the meetings and in court itself, which is that we have the referral meetings once a month, and then we have court reviews and pleas twice a month, uh, every other Wednesday, and first and third Wednesdays of the month we're in court in front of Judge Avashovic de Lucente, who uh, here's we go over every single case and go over the case, or no, every single case that's established. We have 42 individuals in veteran court at the moment. Some of them have multiple cases. Some of them have 4 or 5 cases against them each that have come through the system. Uh, Most of them have 1 or 2. So anyway, we have this meeting, we sit down, go over, first of all, are they a veteran? We get people that claim they're a veteran and they're not. So those are easy to reject because the VA establishes whether they're a veteran, whether they served or not. We give people the opportunity, okay, well, you say you're a veteran, can't find anything, show us your DD 214, that's your discharge papers. So they have to submit proof of service. So then if they are a veteran, the biggest question is, do they qualify for Veterans Administration for VA services? Generally speaking, yes. If they serve, they generally qualify for VA service. But based on the quality of their discharge, they may not. And the two that will automatically exclude you from Veterans Court and VA service, or not Veterans Court, but will exclude you from VA services, are a bad conduct discharge, which pretty much speaks for itself, or the second one is a dishonorable discharge. Now, to get a dishonorable discharge or a bad conduct discharge from the military, you got to be a pretty bad apple. I mean, that means because there is something called a general discharge. Well, you don't quite rate an A. You know, you're maybe a C, but a bad conduct discharge or a dishonorable is an F in a grading scale. Most of us received honorable discharges, and they're not hard to get. You know, you just go in, do what you're supposed to do, and do your duty. So those are when we then look at the so we have JRS and VLP and VA at all these referral meetings. If the veteran doesn't qualify for uh, VA services for whatever reason, then we put them in Veterans Leadership Program. And they still get the same kind of monitoring and counseling and supervision and requirements. Or if they are mental health veteran cases that don't go to mental health court, because sometimes we have found that veterans do better with other veterans. They have we have kind of the same mindset. We have been through the same training, the same type of experiences, and we do understand each other better than someone who has not done so. We have a specialty treatment court for Veterans Court that's made up of veterans and experienced veterans counselors. So they come in, and there are 3 phases to Veterans Court. There's phase 1. That requires the veteran to come into court in front of Judge Avashovic every 2 weeks until they receive 5 consecutive positive reviews. What's positive review? They're testing negative, and oh, we subject these men and women to drug testing a lot more than they're expecting. I mean, sometimes more than once in a week. The probation officer will subject them to drug testing or alcohol testing. So they're testing clean on the urinalysis. They're going to the required counseling. They're abstaining from alcohol because you're not allowed to do drugs or alcohol when you're in this program. So I want everybody very clear-headed. And they go in front of the judge every 2 weeks. The Judge Avashovic, it's her full name, Judge Avashovic de Lucente, we tend to all call her Judge Avashovic, uh, is kind of a special person in my experience. She is not just a judge. I mean, you don't want to fool around in front of her. She'll hold you to the standard that you have agreed to. But she's as much a coach as she is a judge. I mean, there are rounds of applause. She gives out challenge coins. She gives out awards to these veterans. She gives out the tokens that show you've been free of alcohol for 30, 90 days, a year, whatever. And those kind of things we have found mean something to somebody, that they can take a look at that award coin or whatever and just say, yeah, somebody else has recognized that I haven't touched the booze in 90 days and 6 months or whatever like that. And the so if they get 5 consecutive positive reviews, so theoretically, they could, in 10 weeks, they could move to phase two. Sometimes, I mean, our people slip, our veterans slip up. Yeah, they had a couple of beers watching the Steelers lose to the Browns, and they or win. Let's hope. And so then they get a negative review. Well, that just kind of sets the timetable back, because then they have to start all over to get 5 consecutive positive reviews. So people can be in phase one longer than 10 weeks and usually are. You go to phase two, or once you're in phase two, after those 5 consecutive reviews, you have to go to court once a month instead of twice a month. And you appear before the same judge. I'm there. The public defender that I spoke of is there. There is a representative from Duquesne Law Veterans Program there. His name is Dan Kuntz. He brings interns from the law school that are interested in Veterans Court and may want to do so after graduation, work in that area. And we go over the cases. Said, no, they're not everybody every week. We couldn't do 42 every 2 weeks in front of the judge. And since some people have to be every 2 weeks and some people once a month, it doesn't work that everybody comes in. Now, once you're in phase two, it takes 4 consecutive positive interviews to move to phase three. Phase three is the final three. And phase three requires consistent positive reviews up until graduation from Veterans Court. Now, Veterans Court, generally speaking, if you do everything by the book and you're a stellar veteran in our court, you're out in half time. So instead of 2 years, you can be out in a year. Instead of 4 years, you can be out in 2 years. Unless based on the type of crime or your prior record, I have the option when I make the offer as a prosecutor to say no early termination. And as an example of that, I just approved a veteran for Veterans Court and his attorney accepted my offer that he will be in there for 4 years because he was a person not to possess a firearm. But he's going to do the full 4 years of probation. We're not allowing any early termination on that. Unless something goes in there. I mean, he goes in there in 3 years, he's the best candidate we ever have. The judge is going to have the option to say, I'm going to terminate him early and let him out. And I do trust her wisdom and experience on that. And generally, gun cases are hard. Let's talk about the type of crimes to get into Veterans Court. You can't get in just because you're a veteran. The automatic exclusions or any type of homicide. We allow no sex crimes and no crimes involving children. So, and generally speaking, involving children. I mean, corruption of minors, something like that. Could conceivably a case involving a child as a victim may possibly be coming in because we vote on this as a committee. It's not just me. It's we have input from the social services agencies and the VA, from the very experienced public defender as to whether we should allow somebody in. But the sex crimes, rape, indecent assault, things of that nature, and homicide are just automatically excluded. Also excluded from the program is somebody based on their criminal record that we feel as a committee they are not amenable to the program. We don't want to set somebody up to fail, to bring them in there, because if they're sentenced to 2 years probation in Veterans Court and they fail, the judge can sentence them to 2 years in prison, can change that probation into a prison term. Our goal, as I stated earlier, I mean, in this forward thinking of Mr. Zappala's office, our goal is not to just lock people up, is not to set people up for failure. Say, look at all these people we put in jail. I mean, part of the objectives of these programs, these specialty courts, is to reduce jail population and to provide people the services they need to not continue to commit criminal acts and be productive members of the community. I have witnessed some graduation just last week out of Veterans Court, and these younger men and women were they were ecstatic that they had completed this program. Of course, they're also ecstatic they're not going to jail, but at the same time, not that many people go to jail in Allegheny County. It's not like it used to be. A lot of people get probation or house arrest. So they graduate if they've completed all the requirements of the program. And as part of the program, they're going through mental health counseling and drug and alcohol counseling. And their attendance at treatment sessions is mandatory. If they don't show up at a treatment session, that can result in a negative or a neutral review, depending on the reason. They are, if the counselor says, and oftentimes they are required to complete 90 in 90. That's 90 Alcoholics Anonymous or NA meetings in 90 days. They have to go every day for 90 days. Sounds like maybe a strict requirement, but it's really not, because these meetings are online. They can attend online and they have to submit proof to the probation officer, who is a very hands-on guy and is generally loved by the people that he supervises, his probationers. But they have to provide proof that they went. They receive support veteran mentors through the VA and these other agencies. And they get said again, all the
Michael,
requirements.
can I ask, I wanted to ask about that. When do they get the veteran mentor?
It's through and again, they may not necessarily be a veteran, have to be a veteran. It's going to be somebody at the VA.
Okay.
Okay. And or through the Veterans Leadership Program. And believe me, we have a lot of veterans in these programs that a lot of people are having. I think the goal is that for everybody has a mentor who's a veteran. But I mean, the more important thing are the licensed clinical social workers and the psychiatrist. I mean, they they are not allowed to continue. Some of them have medical marijuana cards before they come in. As long as their psychiatrist says that they should have that, then they're allowed to continue to do so. But if, I mean, I think these medical marijuana cards are fairly easy to get. I mean, I think they're available for anxiety and things like this. But imagine if you suffer from, based on your military service, that you suffer from extreme paranoia. You really don't want to be smoking marijuana. I mean, I understand that I'm told that it causes paranoia in and of itself. So it would not be an appropriate treatment drug. Other ones are given something called Vivitrol, which is an injection which negates the effects of alcohol. When you're on Vivitrol and you drink, you're just wasting your time if you think you're going to get high, or whatever expression is more appropriate for alcohol use, intoxicated. Uh,
It,
so
it,
that is pretty much the overview of what we do here in Allegheny
so
County.
can I
Yes,
ask you another question? After
absolutely.
graduation, is there any continuing relationship or that's the end?
Well, that's the end of Veterans Court.
Okay.
But now people make uh, Josh, our lead probation officer that oversees these veterans. Uh, People stay in touch with him, and he gives them an attaboy. I mean, the all of us in Veterans Court are a little bit different. None of us are people that are there. We're all volunteers to be in this program, and we care. None of us are just like, okay, putting it 5 more years, or whatever. It's like we're doing this because we care about these veterans, or the other, the DUI court or the mental health court, or the drug court or whatever. And realizing that said again, forward thinking, there are better alternatives to incarceration. Now, some people, in my opinion, and not everybody agrees, some people need to be locked in a cage. Jeffrey Dahmer, for example, I mean, we wouldn't take him into Veterans Court. He was a cannibal, serial killer cannibal or something. He's not somebody that's going to benefit from the program. And all you can do sometimes is warehouse somebody. Charles Manson, if anybody is young enough to remember or old enough to remember Charles Manson, I mean, he would not have benefited from Veterans Court.
Yep.
So
I know that you talked a lot about the Allegheny County Veterans Court, which is amazing, but does every county in Pennsylvania or every judicial district have a veterans court? I don't think so, right?
I don't think so. I
Right,
don't know how many do.
right.
Uh,
I'm looking. I
uh,
think I actually, no, that's just the veterans court.
yeah, I don't know exactly how many in counties. I do know that there are multiple counties that have them, and the requirements are different. Some of them will only take felonies. Some of them will only take misdemeanors. We take
Right.
misdemeanors and felonies. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on, again, the circumstances of the crime, the prior record of the individual, or, is the person amenable to the program. We have rejected people because probation department in Allegheny County says, we have had this guy on probation before. He doesn't do what he's told. He's arrogant. He's hostile. He's not going to comply. And again, we don't want to bring somebody in and set them up for failure. We want to bring people in that we can help. Not everybody can be helped. Some people are just on a short rope to the jail. I mean, that's what happens in our system.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, this is a truly special court, and clearly that there's been this consistency.
you blanked out on me, Debbie. Still see your image, but you're frozen. There you go. You're back.
Okay, sorry. I said clearly this is a special court because of as evidenced really by the consistency of all the participants as well. I mean, it's really special that there is this that so many of you have been doing this for so long, and you have this understanding and empathy. It's really wonderful.
We started in 2009,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the first Veterans Court in Pennsylvania was another county in 2008.
Right.
So we started, I believe, in 2009. And you did have one slide that I wanted to briefly touch on. The slide speaks for itself about Veterans Court on the federal level.
Yep. I'll go back
And
to it.
my knowledge on that is very limited. I can tell you, as a Vietnam vet, that the government had a history of denying the ill effects of Agent Orange on soldiers and sailors and airmen uh, for years. It wasn't until 1978 that they started to recognize that military personnel from Vietnam were suffering as a direct result of Agent Orange. Agent Orange is, for those of you who don't know, is a defoliant. What it did was done, it was sprayed by planes to kill vegetation. It knocked the leaves off of trees, it killed the bushes, it killed what the enemy hid in, the Viet Cong in particular. And so that was done. Anything is it's highly toxic. It causes cancer. It causes, and the government at first denied this and said, oh, no, it doesn't. But they have found since the Agent Orange Act in 1991 that Agent Orange has causes cancer, neuropathy, Parkinson's disease, heart disease, among other things. And it causes mental disturbances too. I mean, I know of a veteran who had to fight for years, a fellow Vietnam veteran had to fight for years to get the VA to treat him and it's not the fault of the VA, it was government regulations and things at the time that they were forced to. VA is a wonderful organization. And he's a messed up guy. I mean, physically and mentally. So that's part of, I mean, that they have now a Veterans Court on the federal level, the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, where veterans who used to be, you were told, no, you don't qualify for treatment. Excuse me. That was the end of it. You had no recourse. Now you can appeal to the Federal Veterans Court to get treatment on from a federal agency. So
Thank you so very much on behalf
my
of
pleasure.
PMC. Truly appreciate your time, your dedication, and your passion. So everybody, thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.